Hello, a very good morning and welcome to Termas de Rio Honda in Argentina for MotoGP's return to South America, the first time in 3 years that we've been here in this continent. Brilliant to be back, but we join you with some breaking news that came out just an hour or so ago, that Friday's track action here in Argentina has unfortunately had to be cancelled as a result of logistical issues getting freight here. Two separate issues with two different flights means that we're still awaiting the arrival of 5 freight affecting teams in MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3, most notably in MotoGP, from walking up and down the paddock. Gresini, VR46 and the factory Ducati team still without any of their freight whatsoever. And Simon, just let's explain why they've had to cancel Friday's track action. We'll explain to you what the new schedule looks like on Saturday as a result, because I'm sure a lot of people at home might be thinking if the freight arrives tonight, then you can just take the bike out and go out for free practice 1 on Friday. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as that.
No, I mean, I know from doing the tech talks, which I try to do in the team garages, and they're not normally ready, you know, considering they've got everything in their garage ready to be set up, and that on Wednesday morning. Their bikes aren't ready till, I can't normally go in there because they're undressed, meaning no fairings and that, before 4 or 5 o'clock on a Thursday. So they've had all that day. And to give the viewers an idea, if you've just done a wet race, and you know, at the last GP, the bikes have got put in, you know, quickly to get the right freight planes. They've been put away filthy and completely filthy, and that's on top of all the maintenance that they need, all the parts that are up to mileage and need to be changed. They get taken completely apart to get scrubbed back up. I'm talking, it'd be a good 4 or 5 hour job easily to take everything apart, clean it and put it back together, you know. And then there's the normal maintenance stuff on top. So it's just not possible, you know, if the freight turn up this late. So it's totally unfair on the teams, and it has to be fair, you know.
Yeah, that's the key thing, you know, the sporting integrity of the championship has to be remained at all times. And as you were saying, normally team staff arrive on Tuesday evening, and it is a 2-day operation to get the garage set up, to get the bikes fully prepared and ready for action on Friday. So for it to arrive potentially late this evening and for them to then work throughout the night, there's a safety issue there as well, that they need to make sure that these bikes are ready. And as I said, it affects not only MotoGP but Moto2 and Moto3 as well. A freak incident, something that cannot be avoided, unfortunately. So hopefully the plan is that the freight that is still remaining will arrive during the course of this evening and into tomorrow, which means we have a Super Saturday coming our way. Now, free practice 1 and 2 for all 3 classes will take place on Saturday morning, and then all qualifying sessions on Saturday afternoon. Me and you are going to be quite busy on Saturday, mate.
No lunch for a lot of people in the paddock, including us. It's actually quite exciting, you know, from a viewer's point of view, because it's like going back to, I know it's nothing like club racing, but that's what we had to do, you know. And in the early days, you turn up, have a bit of practice one day, and then go racing, you know. And it's going to play into the hands of some, for sure, who have a good base setting. But then you've got to consider riders like, I would say, Aleix Espargaro, Jack Miller, Dovi,
Alex Rins.
Alex Rins, for more than one reason. And there's a good 5 riders who have been here quite a lot, and you know, and the rest, they're either rookies in 19, so they've been here once, which you don't remember a lot as a rookie, one time to a track, and then you've got the rookies who have never been here on a MotoGP bike. So yeah, it's anything can happen. I think it's a disadvantage, obviously, for the rookies now that there's effectively one less session that they're going to get before the race. But then I spoke to Darren Binder, and he went, in his really laid-back way, it could play into my hands. You know, meaning he's saying with everyone not being quite ready, he could grab an advantage somehow, which is a good way to look at it. But it's going to be a tough job for both riders and teams, mechanics, everyone to get ready on time. And then you've got to think about they've got more tyres in the allocation. They've got the same allocation, but less sessions. So riders love more tyres. They're going to throw more tyres at the bike because the bike works and handles better, and they like it. And then there's less time to do the race simulations.
Yeah.
So I predict there's going to be more than the usual amount of riders going into the race without doing race distance. And the reason is, if you haven't found the setting, you don't want to do your race run because you're not even comfortable on the bike yet. So, and you keep putting that off, you end up not quite doing the race distance before it's time to choose your tyre and go racing.
One of the big question marks coming into the weekend for a lot of the riders is going to be the track surface as well. We've obviously not been here for 3 years, and there's not been much track action at all due to various issues with the circuit. Of course, they had the fire, which, having arrived here, the rebuild job has been absolutely excellent. The place is in fantastic condition, but unfortunately, as a result of a lack of track action, there won't be a lot of grip out there Friday morning, and that's going to affect their plans. Of course, no free practice 4 as such. That instead is now free practice 3, just to cover it off. Free practice 1, free practice 2 for all classes on Saturday morning will decide the places for Q1 and Q2. Then just before MotoGP qualifying gets underway, we'll have free practice 3, which is the normal free practice 4 session that we're used to. The big issue with that, of course, is because of the bumper schedule in the morning. When free practice 3/4 gets underway, it's nowhere near the time at which the race is going to start on Sunday.
So it should be cooler.
It should be a lot cooler, because this morning when we woke up at 9 o'clock, it was 8-9 degrees. But as the sun comes out, the temperature rises quite a lot here. So the data that they do collect on Saturday afternoon might not be as useful for Sunday afternoon as we've seen previously.
Yeah, and just to explain for the viewers, the tracks we go to that don't get used every day, like the GP tracks in Europe do, they're always greener, as the tyre technicians call it, which means less rubber, probably a little dustier as well, but less rubber down, and it takes time. And that initial track time doesn't give you the correct information you need for bike setting, but also how the tyres are being used, how they're lasting. That is not until there's enough rubber down to really predict what the tyres will do.
Let's talk some other sporting news then heading into this weekend, because Honda's difficult start to the season has continued. We knew, of course, that Marc Marquez would be absent this weekend, but we found out this morning that unfortunately LCR's Taka Nakagami has tested positive for COVID-19, so unfortunately the Japanese rider won't be here as well. A replacement for Marc Marquez has been announced. Stefan Bradl will be here, a man with experience here with Honda as well, so we could well see a surprise from the German, but unfortunately no replacement for Taka. Just quickly before we touch on Marc, a great shame for Taka. After a difficult start to the season, he really needed to get out there and get some good results, and this weekend could have been one of them, because I think he's one of only 3 riders that were going to come into this weekend with the same team as in 2019. Yeah,
and track knowledge. He'd been here a couple of years, so you're right. A real shame. It's a surprise that COVID hasn't caught more riders before now. It was always going to happen, but yeah, I thought it's going to happen as long as the PCRs still count to come, aren't they? It's going to catch some people out, teams and riders. There's a few team staff missing as well. A couple of different teams got 2 members missing, but yeah, real shame. If you're watching Taka, I hope to see you at the next one. And also, HRC need him. He's been riding some different chassis to the other Honda riders, obviously developing, I think, for the future on, trying to get that new machine a step forward. And it's really interesting to see how the new machine will go here at what I would guess is quite low grip, early on.
He is asymptomatic, fortunately, and feeling okay, and he does hope to be with us back in Austin, so echo your thoughts. Hopefully, if Taka's watching from his home in Barcelona, we'll see you in Austin. But as I said, the issues continue for Honda because there's no Marc Marquez here as well. A huge shock that, unfortunately, as a result of a third episode, of diplopia, he's ruled unfit for this weekend, and speculation at this point, but it does seem highly unlikely that we'll see him in Austin in just a week's time as well. How impactful is that on HRC?
I think it's quite obvious that he's their lead hope, especially for race wins. And Yeah, massive impact. I got told by the team PR man that they're hoping, they've still got their fingers crossed for Austin.
Okay.
So fingers crossed for Mark for Austin, one of his favourite or most successful tracks on the calendar.
Yeah, potentially then we could see him return at the Circuit of the Americas, which would be a huge boost for him because, as you say, he would go into that race, despite all of his health issues, as still the clear favourite. He probably would have been the favourite for this weekend as well. So it's a huge blow to his championship hopes, not being able to collect potentially 50 points in the space of 7 days.
Yeah, watching what Mark did on the bike here at Termas Rio Hondo in the past, he did a couple of corners truly awesome. One of them, that last braking right-hand section, how he could come in and slide the back and somehow make up the corner that he had the incident with Rossi and somehow make up time on majority of people, a couple of tenths. It's a shame not have him here.
A huge shame. So with the change of the schedule, then we've mentioned a few names, Simon, but who does this benefit? Alex Rins is one that springs to mind. His first ever MotoGP podium here back in 2018. He's got experience of the circuit as a result of that experience with the bike at this circuit as well. Would you say he's potentially the favourite coming into the weekend?
I have to agree. Like, on paper, he's got to be one of my favourites, if not my favourite, because all of the things you just mentioned, so his experience here, both with the track, but also with his machine that hasn't changed too much over that period. Also because this track is very hard on rear tyres, and he is excellent at being smooth and managing those rear tyres. So I think it's a long way off, and we've got to see what happens during the weekend. But the chance of him being able to pick his way through the field and catch the people who are suffering rear tyre wise, I think my prediction is Sunday he's got a really good chance of doing that.
Another team in fine form at the moment are KTM, for the first time in their history in the MotoGP class, leading the Constructors' Championship and the Teams' Championship as well. Second in Qatar with Brad Binder. Victory last time out with Miguel Oliveira. I think you'd be a brave man to bet against them being in contention on Sunday as well, especially with the track conditions as they are, possibly favourable for the Orange Army.
Yes, and because traditionally, I don't know if KTM feel this, but pretty much everyone else in the paddock feels that when there is a low grip situation, the KTM seems to float to the top, you know, and then you have guys like Miguel and Brad that pull something special out on Sunday. I wouldn't bet at all against the KTM being right at the front.
Looking at the other end of the spectrum, a great start to 2022 for KTM. It's been an incredibly frustrating one for Ducati, with their two big title hopes, Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin, languishing at the bottom end of the table, which would have been a huge surprise to many, given the way in which they ended 2021. How important is it that they really start to turn that around as soon as possible? With two races coming up in 7 days, this is a big opportunity to get themselves back on the right track ahead of us heading to Europe. That's
a good way to put it, back on the right track, and I think everyone will agree that we know Ducati are going to get back on the right track, especially when we're back in Europe. I think they are definitely going to float to the top there, and you've mentioned some of the guys. I mean, there is at least 3 Ducati riders that should be favourites when we get back to Europe, but it's, can they turn things around here? You know, I mean, Jack has showed, you know, his potential here. I think there's a very good chance Ducati as well, at least with the 21 bike engine, you know, has proven that it's very good also. Mechanical grip, finding the grip, you know. So if there is a lack of grip here, being a green track, I think, yeah, they've got at least 3 guys that should be right in there.
In terms of the other factories that you think could be in the mix, Yamaha,
Aleix.
Fabio bounced back, of course, in Indonesia with a podium there in wet conditions, which not many would have predicted going into that race on Sunday. But Aleix is another one with great experience, A, at this circuit, and B, with Aprilia as well. Could this be the weekend for Aprilia, the weekend they've been searching for a number of years?
I think they must be thinking this, you know. It's an opportunity. They've got a rider, well, two riders, sorry, both the Aprilia riders have more experience than the majority of the rest of them, and at the circuit. And yeah, there's an opportunity to hit the ground running and catch something special. I hope they're thinking that. And then Yamaha, like you just mentioned, Yamaha traditionally suffer at low grip tracks. You know, I think part of the reason they did so well at the last race in Indonesia, that the grip level is very high, especially in the wet, and I think it masked some of their problems. Will they all return here? You know, to be fair, it's not a huge horsepower track. It's more about being able to conserve that rear tyre, have the rider feel good. I think there's going to be some really important electronic setting things here that help teams have success. You know, we'll go into more of that in the FPs, but I think it has the potential to be bad for Yamaha here. Right. That's only my gut feeling because of the low grip, but Fabio's going to ride the wheels off it anyway, isn't he? So let's see what they can do.
He always does, yeah. And mentioning Aprilia as well, you just get the feeling with the change to the schedule, the lack of track time for lots of riders here, that it is the sort of weekend where a sort of anomaly of a result, one that we don't expect, can pop up, and Aleix would be the perfect man to cash in on that.
Yep. Oh, yep. It is the guys I mentioned, Aleix, Alex Rins, I have to say Brad Binder, Sunday, low grip, lack of track time. He could, you know, there's a good 4 or 5 guys.
Just so you know as well, following myself and Simon talking you through the preview of this Michelin Grand Prix of Argentina, Matt Burt will be speaking with Donna Sports CEO Carmelo Espeleta just to get an official word on the reasoning behind the change of schedule with, if you're just joining us, Friday track action being cancelled and it now being a 2-day weekend here. Following that, at 12:30 local time, we'll be able to hear from the stars of MotoGP ahead of this weekend. Given that the change of schedule, Simon, then just finally, how will that affect how teams and riders together plan for the weekend? How will that change the strategy that they normally would have over a 3-day weekend? Will it be the sort of weekend where they have to prioritise some elements over others? Completely.
That's a really good point. I think they know they have not got the one extra, basically like the FP3 or FP4, one less session. So they've got to find a base setting that the guy's comfy with. They can't take as many risks to try and find settings. Super important to get that electronics sorted, so they'll be working on that straight away. Basically, they've got less time and they have to not waste any of it, and obviously they've got to have the race run planned to. But like I said, I think that we're going to go into this race with more unknowns than usual because of this, you know, meaning they're going to turn up on Sunday going into the race with a tyre on that they haven't done distance on before. That's what I think is going to happen.
It all gets underway at 9:15 on Saturday morning, all the way through to the Saturday qualifying press conference getting underway at 7 o'clock local time. So if you have got anything planned for Saturday, then you might as well go ahead and cancel it. Get yourself comfy on the couch on Saturday morning and afternoon, because you've got a bumper day of MotoGP action, bringing you free practice sessions for MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3, and then the grids will be set in the afternoon. You don't want to miss it. That's just about enough from myself and Simon. We'll be joining you throughout the course of tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned to MotoGP.com and all of our social channels, where we're bringing you something a little bit different to try and make up for the lost time. But let's hand over to MotoGP commentator Matt Burt, who'll be speaking shortly with Donna Sports CEO Carmelo Espeleta.